I'm a firm believer in not being neutral. You can't be neutral in a lot of things. Like, you might try your hardest to do it, and you're probably a hard worker. I don't know you, but we cannot remain neutral in a lot of things. And I'm not even trying to talk politics. It's literally in anything. You either like something, you don't. You either agree something, you don't. We try our best to stay out of situations because we don't want the responsibility of the cleanup. And this can be in anything. So this Reddit says, how do I stay neutral in my parents' divorce when my dad isn't being fair to my mum? So she says, advice needed. She says, hi Reddit, I'm hoping for some advice on how to navigate my parents' divorce without taking sides, which is turning out to be harder than I expected because you can't stay neutral. For context, I'm 29 and my parents are 56 and 54. She says, and my parents have had a rocky relationship for a while. A few years ago, my dad had an emotional affair at the end. There it is. Case closed. It's crazy how guys will say, okay, cheating is sex. That's it. A lot of people are like, okay, emotional cheating is worse than physical cheating, or physical cheating is worse than whatever. It's literally the same thing. You are supposed to be giving these things to your partner. You're not giving it to them, but you're going out of your way to sneak behind people's back and give it to somebody else for no other reason apart from the fact that you are selfish. That's very intentional. It's too intentional for it to be nothing. Both have effects. Both are intentional. It's all cheating. It literally doesn't matter. It's always funny how our dads can do terrible things, yet we still have the benefit of the doubt for them. Why is it like that? Because I'm pretty certain, I'm not trying to call this person a pick me, but if the mum was the one who did something, I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be a Reddit about being neutral. I think a lot of people just like their dads a lot. Your dad was the kind of parent that you were always trying to impress. I don't care whether he was there or not. It really doesn't matter. I think a lot of people, I would say most people who didn't, grew up with fathers or a father figure, and they still turned out very badly because of the kind of person that guy was, because they spend their whole lives trying to impress that guy. That is not a father to you. And I think a lot of fathers know that their kids idolize them unnecessarily, but they do nothing to change that. They'd rather demonize the mother. It's not healthy. She says her father apologized, but they never really worked through it. It was more like sweeping it under the rug. Since then, my mum's been suspicious of any woman my dad interacts with. To be fair, my mum can be difficult to deal with when she's angry, and I know her resentment and lack of communication over the years have played a big role in this marriage's downfall. Sure it has. But here's where I'm struggling. Although I don't think my mum handled things well, my dad hasn't been honest with her either. He only recently admitted that he's been unhappy for the last 2 to 3 years, even though they've been actively planning their retirement together and building a home. If you allow a man, like, you literally don't ask him these kind of questions, he'll literally go to his grave with you and he'll be cheating the entire time. And then if you manage to catch him before he dies, he'll say, oh, the reason why I stayed is because I couldn't be asked to go. It's because of the kids. It's never because of the kids. They lie. They don't say things like that. They pretend it's their duty to suffer when literally nobody's making you suffer. No one's making you suffer, or everyone's cooking and cleaning for you. Everyone's tap dancing for you. Nobody's making their lives hard. They make things hard for themselves. If they can't cosplay sadness and misery, then that means they have no personality. Women have tangible things. Proof that we suffer. Men, on the other hand, especially when it comes to be father is the easiest job on the planet, trust me. You literally just have to show up to work and everyone will be like, oh my god, he's just so great. Like, I wish he was my father. And if a woman is trying to take him off your hands, let her. She'll soon see exactly why she should have walked by in the first place. It wasn't a mistake. Her father is definitely not sorry at all for doing anything with another woman. Because a lot of men like to lie and say they're open. They're not open. They don't like to communicate things they don't care about. So if you know that, apply it to everything else. If you were in a relationship before where you were trying to get out of him, why did you do this? Why were you cheating? Why were you doing that? And then he was giving you the runaround. Just know now that he didn't care about what he did. He didn't care about you, and he did it because he wanted to, and that's it. It makes life 10 times more easier to live when you just realize the vast majority of people in general, they always find the easiest way to try and explain things. And a lot of us, not just men, but it's mostly them, a lot of us spin stories in a way that makes us look slightly better than we actually were in the story. We like to leave out a lot of things that make us look bad. So obviously her father's not going to be honest. He wasn't honest in the first place, but whatnot. This woman is nearly 30 as of when the Reddit was posted, and she's trying to play both sides. You're a grown woman, you should know how these things are. This sounds like the kind of person, if the father wasn't there in the house and then he came back years later, she'd be like, oh, my father called me, my father did this, my father did that. Meanwhile, your mum was the one who did the heavy lifting. Continue with the Reddit. She says, now he suddenly moved out and keeps saying he loves her but isn't in love with her. They're in therapy, but I get the feeling he's doing it just so he can say he tried, rather than saying he's truly committed to working things out. Yeah, guys will do things like that. I know I'm too involved, and a big part of that is my dad not communicating with her or me until things hit a breaking point. He even put me in a position of telling my mum he'd moved out after she went away for a few days. It was an awful experience for everyone involved. And yeah, of course, obviously her mum and her dad are both at fault. They're both equally at fault here, yet only one of them's being avoidant. I don't know. She says, how do I keep myself neutral and support them both when I feel so conflicted? Part of me is hurt and frustrated by my dad's actions, but I don't want to make this any harder for either of them. I'd really appreciate any advice on how to handle this situation or how others have managed to stay balanced in similar family conflict. You like your dad more, that's it. When people like their dads more, there's nothing you can tell them. Like, honestly, I really don't care at this point. And you shouldn't care either. When the dad is the favourite parent, you can always almost tell what kind of person this person is and what kind of person they're going to be. How can you look at the way your dad's acting and then you're still being like, well, I don't want to upset both of them? You say you want to help both of them, yet you're only helping your father. You're helping him be avoidant. You're helping him avoid his responsibility. We have to remember strictly, like, no one makes men get married. No one's ever done that to them. No one's ever done that to them, and they've never done it now. They don't do it now. Like, honestly, this is the easiest time for men to evade responsibility whatsoever. Yet they purposely do these things. They purposely get married, purposely start relationships, purposely create children and families that they do not have any intention of sticking around to raise and help and participate in. The sooner we realise that a lot of these men do these things because they know women will be triangulated no matter what happens, you'll think twice before thinking you want a child with a man or the man you're with. You'll think twice about that, honestly. I'm not gonna lie, I've been there where I was thinking, oh, this guy would make a good father eventually. And now thinking back, I'm like, hold on a second, why was I even thinking about that? Because that's how we're socialised as women and girls. We're socialised to put families first as well as men first, because we have to put ourselves last. After we finish thinking about everyone else, we have ourselves at the end of the day, but by the time the end of the day comes, we don't have any time. So we go to bed and we wake up in the morning and we do it all over again. She's not really saying anything that her mum did, simply because her mum probably didn't really do anything. She's talking about her mum's attitude. Imagine not understanding that some woman would be very, very, like, frustrated with the kind of guy they're married to when you've just explained what kind of guy your dad is. I understand, and I've met people like this who try and, do both sides, and I understand it because she knows her parents better than everyone else. But we only see one person making an active effort to ensure something is done, even if it results in a divorce at the end of the day. Your father has already moved out. The relationship is over. It's dead. He says he's not in love with your mum. You should want someone to be in love with you, not just love you, in love with you when it comes to a romantic relationship. Otherwise, there's no reason to be with that person. And of course, I'm not talking about when you've just started dating or you don't want to get married and stuff like that. But if you're going to build a big life together like this, you'd have to see the value in that person more than you don't see the value in them. And you'd see so much value in them that you don't think about the other things, to be honest. That's why some of us are like, how can you be with this person? We're not supposed to understand why some people might be with some people. But one thing we can all universally understand is the reason why someone might not want to be with that person. A lot of men get bored very easily because that's the way they train themselves to be. And the thing is, with these kind of guys, they always end up alone. They like to pretend as if they don't, but they always end up alone. You can never stay neutral in this. If you love both your parents equally, you'll never be able to be neutral. So good luck to my American girlies who are voting. I've been seeing all sorts of rubbish this morning, and I literally just got up like half an hour ago. This is very weird. This is very suspicious. I would never expect this of the Conservatives. I would never expect this of the Republicans. How would you ever fathom or gather that these men who vote Republican want to harm their wives if they find out their wives voted for anybody they didn't vote for? It's not like they haven't been saying this the entire presidential race. It's not like they've been saying this since the dawn of time, since Republicans shifted. This guy, right, has done so much damage to an already effed up system, and I know for a fact that if he is elected again, things will be 10 times worse than they already are. It's very funny how people believe that he won't support genocide, that he won't support the rolling back of women's rights, that he will not make anything
10 times difficult for people who aren't as wealthy as him. So I think I need people to wake up. But if you're not going to, so be it. At least I don't live in America. So this video is from a film, and I don't want to go and find out what film it's from. I really don't want that on my subconscious. But I did see the video. It's of a man dragging this woman by the hair and like kicking her out the door with his foot, like full on yeeting her out of the door, kicking her behind. I don't want people to see that. It's really not. Me explaining it to you is good enough. But in the comments, I'll read all the comments because I didn't want to post the screenshots. I really don't think that people won't be able to gather or garner what these men were saying in the comments. This is just a few comments. This is maybe 8 comments. And this person, Right Wing Cope, says that this post got over 100 likes. Now, obviously, this is not the first time we've seen posts where men have been saying these things about women. You have to be honest with yourself when these men will say that there's a loneliness epidemic and say that they don't have women who allow them to be men anymore. Yet, when they band together, the mountains they can move by simply making agreements with each other, because they talk to each other more than we give them credit for. Just not about the things that will make them not lash out at women and girls. They talk to each other, liberal men, conservative men, quote unquote centrist men. They all talk to each other like buddies. They talk to each other on forum and they make agreements on who to vote for. If it was in their best interest to vote for Kamala, they would do it. But they know for a fact it's not, or at least not everything Kamala Harris's administration is going to do is going to simply and only benefit straight cisgendered white men. And even you have men of colour voting for the Republican side, obviously, but they're going to get a rude awakening. They're already getting a rude awakening, especially Latino men or men from Puerto Rico. We're still having this idea that Puerto Rico isn't a part of America. That's none of my business. Because like I said, I'm not American, I don't live over there. But I know geography very well. It's very funny to see quote-unquote average Americans not even know that Puerto Rico is a part of America. It's actually very funny. You're sitting on stolen land and you literally don't think that there's anybody else that is a part of the country that you say you're from. It is what it is. Like I said, these men talk to each other more than we think. They actually make agreements with each other online. That's why a lot of leftist men, their politics is not that far removed from the right-wing men's politics. Like we've mentioned before, left-wing men, they think women's bodies should be public property, and then right-wing men think that women's bodies should be private property. It all comes from a space of knowing that the more rights you seem to give to women, that's why leftist men are all for the sexual revolution, because they get to have free sex without doing anything. Meanwhile, right-wing men know that they can't express their politics outwardly and have all women like them, because saying all these things, these blatant things that the right-wing men are saying, will not guarantee them women. So they either have to hide it, or they have to vote for laws that are going to make women more restricted from ever leaving them, or ever not being able to not choose being with them in the first place. Why am I talking about women in this way? Because that's their motivation. Let's be real. A lot of these men, 90% of them, their motivation in life is to get a woman one day. And not just a woman, to trap her in some way by getting her pregnant or by marrying her and then showing her his true colours 1 second into the marriage. So let me read you these comments. Someone said, OMG, the Liberals will be doing some screaming when they see this. I love it. Another person said, the kick out the door though. And then someone called John said, lol. Joe said, hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Manny Yaka said, hell yes, absolutely. William Landris 8 says, hell yeah, but that's everyone standing behind that crooked B word, referring to Kamala obviously. And then Jody Jones says, when men was men. First of all, that is grammatically incorrect. Second of all, men have never stopped being the quote-unquote men that they want to be. When they say when men were men, or in this guy's case, when men was men, they're just talking about their access to violence. Irrefutable, undeniable, unstoppable violence. Like being able to beat your wife with impunity and not have everyone find out about it. Even if she has the gall to go to the police, right? The police will return her back to you, say, oh, you lost your B word. She was down at the station trying to report a crime, can you believe? Ha ha ha. And then the husband goes, ha ha ha. And then the kids are like, ha ha ha, mummy, you're so stupid. And then everyone laughs at her and she'll never try and leave you again. And then you get to have your little mistress on the side. And then you get to have a little mistress on the side. And then when your wife gets to the ripe old age of 24, Then you have to trade her in for a 16-year-old because by then it'll be legal to marry a 16-year-old. And by the time your 16-year-old wife gets to be like 30, you've kept her for a while. You get to marry your freshly 9-year-old bride because by then that would be legal too. I don't know why people don't know, even in America. I don't live there, but in Northern America, in quite a few states, child marriage or like marriage to underage girls is very much legal in some states. It is legal in the places you pretend it's not legal in. They're talking about free market and all of that. They don't care about none of that. Because they're just going to aspire to be billionaires and millionaires, even though you can't get there without exploiting people. So you put two and two together. They want to exploit people, particularly women, and then they want to marry children who can't leave them. That's it. Vote wisely.
Joy is kryptonite to men. That's the long and short of things. They don't want to see you happy. They don't want to see you together. They don't want to see you without them. They don't want to see you, period. This guy, Define L, says, I'm not quite sure what to think of this video. Maybe because nobody recorded this video and decided to send it to you privately. But never mind. A lot of men, they lurk on women's pages just to get their pictures and their videos, and then they're going to post it with their boys talking about thoughts. Nobody asked your thoughts directly. That's why they have to snatch your videos away and then post it in a place where mostly men are. And then they'll discuss you. They will discuss your looks. They will rate you. They will talk all kinds of crap. They will make up all sorts of stories. Now, context is very important to a lot of men. At least that's what they say. And as we know, men are always correct and always right and always truthful about everything that comes out of their mouth, isn't it? They always say in context, source, when women are talking about DV statistics or any other statistics. But then when the context is actually in the comments, do you think they're looking in the comments to find context? No, they're looking in the comments so they can find other men they can circle jerk with over how much they hate women. I'm not paraphrasing, this is what actually happened. Yesterday when I saw this tweet, or these tweets, they had a lot less likes, and obviously the men were there more, and they were just like, oh, what's going on here? Like, these women are weird, why are they doing that? Blah, blah, blah. But obviously more people have found the video or found this Defiant L's person, and are like, well, these women are married, you know, like how you say women, you want women to be, and they have kids already, like you say you want women to do, and they are having more children, like you say you want women to have. Like, I'm very confused. They want you to get married. These women have got married. They want women to have kids. These women have had kids. They want women to have more than one kid. They want women to have multiple kids, and these women are having multiple children. It all sounds very confusing until you realize that a lot of these men just want to talk. Their entire existence is people just listening to them babble about everything. Now, the first moment they probably realized that not everyone was going to want to hear what they have to say is probably when they started maybe school, and then they realized they had to put their hand up before the teacher can even acknowledge them. They don't like that. Then they went to high school, they went to college, university, they went to their first work, their first job. And then they realize not everyone cares about what you have to say. They never got over that. And these are the men, they will turn around and they'll be horrible to women because they want to get back at the world. But they can't get back at the world, so they have to get back at the easiest targets. And that's women. Because men who get women, women who are with women, or men who date women and men who can't date women and don't date women, this is what they have in common. Women are the easiest people to blame and the easiest people to harm because we are socialized not to defend ourselves. So apparently these women are even more men as well. Calling men children, calling them babies really gives them an out. It really gives them excuses because babies are crying for a reason. Children cry for reasons. Men are crying for no reason. Well, obviously there's a reason, but it's not a valid reason. It's not a good reason. But to them and to the way the whole operation is set up, of course it's valid. We can talk about the patriarchy from morning till night. But yeah, essentially the patriarchy, misogyny, society, it gives them the power to say whatever they want when they want to. It gives them the power to call every single woman a whore, every girl a slut, every wife a whore, every single woman a slut. It literally doesn't matter. You can be a whore and a slut depending on the hour of the day, depending whether the sun is in the sky or the moon is in the sky. It doesn't matter. They say they want kids, but what they mean by that is they want you to stay at home and look after them so they can go out into the world and conquer it. They can go to work. They can have a mistress. They can have a life outside of the house. Your life should be the house. But these women are together. You don't see their kids in this video. That annoys men. When they see these things, their brain doesn't compute that, oh, these are human beings just having fun. Because men can't do this because men don't get pregnant. Like cisgender straight men, they don't get pregnant. And they really hate that idea that they cannot bring life into this world. They hate the idea that women are doing it while smiling, even though pregnancy and childbirth can literally kill you off. They hate the idea of you getting up in the morning, despite how much violence they like to give you, that you band together with other women and you create friendships and communities and sisterhoods that last a lifetime, when they can't even make their brotherhood last unless they defend each other and cover each other's crimes. They don't like the idea that women are friends and they don't have to cover crimes for each other. So look at these comments from the Cool Pool guy and Bourbon and Confetti. So these two men here, probably in America, right now are going to vote against whether you as women can have rights over your own body. Whether you, women, can be able to have a small abortion when you want to, especially if your life is in danger. They're also going to get to vote on things they don't understand. These men don't understand anything about our bodies, and yet they're going to vote on whether or not we are allowed to make decisions over our body. Okay, this life is a huge joke. It's a circus, and we're all clowns in it. We are all clowns. This is the funniest play I've ever seen in my life. So this Bourbon and Confetti person is saying, so one of them is pregnant, but they don't know who, and one of them randomly drew the positive stick for laughs. This makes absolutely no sense. So I think I was talking to a mutual about this some point earlier this year on my previous page, where I saw a video, I think last year, of these men. They made a TikTok about filling a cup all the way to the top with water, like they were taking turns opening and closing the tap, and then they had to try and get to the top, like directly to the top without it spilling over. And then I think they managed to do it, and they were like cheering each other, and then a man brought it to Twitter and said, oh, men are so simple. This is the only thing we need to do to have entertainment and blah blah blah, calling men simple and saying that women are always overcomplicated and blah blah blah. If women dared made a video like that, and as I've previously talked about it, like videos like this, when women have fun, just because it's not exactly the same kind of fun men are having, it's not valid. So now it's stupid. Now you know what stupid fun looks like. But when men are wasting water trying to fill a cup all the way to the top and not spill it over, apparently that's just good-hearted, light-hearted fun. Men are the only ones who know how to have fun. And it's not the truth, obviously. The problem is a man didn't come up with the idea. A man didn't tell this group of women to do pregnancy roulette. They didn't tell these women to come together, probably having, a girls' day or something. They weren't in charge of that. These women probably made these decisions on their own. Men on the internet seeing women who don't belong to them, they get very feral. They get very upset whether or not they're partnered or not. The thing is, a lot of these men, they just want control over every single woman they see. That's why when they see you on the street and you deny them your presence, because that's how they see it, they try and make your whole entire day ruined. They try and make it your problem, that they can't see a life where you are not at their mercy. They don't want women to be excited or happy about pregnancy. They want you to be miserable. And therefore, when women are miserable, they'll complain about being miserable, as human beings do. And then they can come back and call women ungrateful. But when do any of these women in these videos, do they look ungrateful? No, they don't. And that hurts men, because they can't go around calling us ungrateful and miserable and emotional. They long for the days where women have to rely on men financially, up and down. And I haven't watched the documentary, but there's this Mormon documentary, I don't know, of these Mormon wives or something, and they look pretty well off. A lot of these Mormon wives, they're the actual breadwinners. They're the famous ones. Because actually, to knock men, I don't care about knocking men. You guys aren't interesting. They come for the wives. They come for the girlfriends. They come for the mother and the wife content. These girls, these women, they're fashionable. And they make these videos all the time, and everyone's tuning in to watch them because their hair looks pretty and stuff. They're giving makeup tips and fashion tips. These men, they're just wearing their cowboy boots and musty jeans. You guys don't look that great. I'm sorry, you don't look good at all. Nobody's coming to see you. They came to see your girlfriend. They came to see your wife. Men finding out the sun doesn't shine out of their assholes, it gets them in a tizzy. Instead of them to be kind to the women, kind to the people that the sun actually does shine out of their ass. No, they have to be mean about it. They have to be horrible. They have to be resentful. And this is where these ideas come from, that women are supposed to be miserable when they find out that they're pregnant. Women are supposed to have a hard time finding someone who can give them an abortion, because you want to punish women for having sex. You want to punish women for being assaulted. You want to punish girls for being preyed upon. Just think about a man's perfect world, and just know for a fact that is most women's worst nightmare. You can see this screenshot. These women are laughing. They're having a great time. These girls look close. These women, they look close to each other. They're friends. And they're doing this little thing. We don't know which one of them is pregnant, but obviously they know which one is pregnant. They're going to find out. Men pretend like they can't understand this because it's got nothing to do with them. So therefore, if it has nothing to do with them, that means it's invalid and it shouldn't exist. They think they're the main characters. That's it. It's not only joy that's kryptonite to men. It's women's joy. They want to be your joy, but they're not. And they make no effort to be so.
Why is it that if a vegan makes a podcast and makes content talking about all the things that are wrong with dairy, all the things that are wrong with the meat industry, why you should not consume these things? No one expects them to still eat meat, right? That makes perfect sense. Vegans are not going to eat meat. They're going to tell you why meat is bad. But if a man makes content about why women are bad and why we should not be interacted with, why we should not be trusted, why we don't deserve rights, people are not shocked that he's still dating women and identifying as heterosexual. How are you not shocked? Vegans don't like meat. They don't eat meat. You'll never see a vegan eating meat or dairy. They'll tell you all the reasons why it's bad. That's the premise of veganism. But red pillars are heterosexual. But men who bully and chastise women are heterosexual. Men who make hate content about women are attracted to us. Men who invite beautiful, beautiful women onto their shows just to embarrass them and tell them that they're not 10s are attracted to women. You see a beautiful woman and you do that, and you want me to believe that that's what you...
When you understand women in the society as vessels for men's misplaced anger and aggression and need for control, which is a human need for control and being self-serving, then it'll be easier to understand what that lady was talking about. It's a valid conversation, definitely, but we as women, I feel like we are completely and utterly in a position to answer that question for ourselves. So, you know what? Let's go back to the basics. I searched up on Google just now. Say, why do men hate women? And this is what came up. It says, anthropologist David D. Gilmour argues that misogyny is rooted in men's conflicting feelings, men's existential dependence on women for procreation, and men's fear of women's power over them in their times of male weakness, contrasted against the deep-seated needs of men for love, care, and comfort of women. And the quote cuts off there. This is basically the ABC of what the problem is or how the problem presents itself. It could be deeper than that, but I think this is very surface level in the way it kind of describes what the problem is. Like I said, women and men, they're human beings. What is better than sharing? It's dominating, it's taking all of it for themselves. Imagine, because there was a quote about monkeys, if a monkey hoarded like all the bananas away from the other monkeys, they would study the monkey to find out what's wrong with it. But when human beings do it, apparently we put them on the Forbes 100 hot 100 list or whatever they call it. I don't know, the Forbes Fortune 100 or whatever. That's exactly it when it comes to misogyny, because men will study like animals and be like, oh, this is very bad. They're treating the females and the males in this pack very badly, and then they'll just turn around and subjugate their wives and their kids. Like, you didn't just study like a lion, it's being very lazy and it's just been ousted from the pride. Like, you are doing the same thing at home, you're doing nothing, you're just eating all the food, wasting all the electricity and all the hot water, and yet you're studying lions, like male lions, and saying, oh yeah, they were right to oust him from the pride. People should oust you from society then. Got to understand that in this kind of world, we do not appear as human beings to men. Like, I did a video on it like before where a study was done and men were like, oh, they see women as body parts, but that's not even the part. Women are just a vessel to project upon, to portray things upon, to just like project your misery upon. So imagine like a punching bag. That's just essentially, we are the closest things to them, because instead of doing them to each other, because if they could just be doing all the things they do to women and girls to men and boys, that means they would have to reckon with the fact that there's a weakness within them. So all of them band together, because when they're by themselves, they'll bully the weaker men and the weaker boys. But when they can project it on women and girls who are on average physically weaker, there's more of a gratification that comes from it. That's why when men assault men aren't really looking at it as assault. They're looking at it as, oh, that's gay. That's what they're thinking. Now, you can pause and read all of this, but this is essentially where misogyny comes from. People like to pretend as if we're just joking about all of this, as if we're just pretending that we just hate men all the time, when this is a question framed for men. People think that men are heterosexual because they are. And what I'm trying to say is that a function and a part of heterosexuality is hatred of women. Heterosexuality can be understood by the subjugation of women. That's literally what this like socialized heterosexuality is. You can be like biologically inherently sexually attracted to a certain gender, but heterosexuality as it's conditioned is based on women being the inferior or the weaker or the submissive participant in the relationship. When you understand, it's easy to answer that question.
people will be like, oh, he's secretly gay, or, you know, he hates women and blah, blah, blah. They don't see it as hating women. You have to understand it. They see it as women not being receptive to the treatment that women apparently deserve. So in the Bible, they'll say, oh, women aren't getting assaulted. You know, if you just assault a woman, if you just, you know, take her virginity without consent and blah, 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 just marry her, just pay her father, pay her family some money and just marry her, take her as a wife. That's how they see it. And they have taken that kind of mindset, passed it down to the boys in their family, who passed it down to the boys in their family, passed it down again and again and again. And this is where we are now. You have to understand that there was never the idea that women were going to get rights back. It was not in the plan for women and girls to get their rights back from men. Men took it away for a reason. It's not just fear, it's envy that we cannot procreate, or they cannot procreate without us, or we are the ones that carry the fetuses to term. So therefore they have to get mad at us and therefore subjugate us so we will never leave. So we are in an abusive relationship with men in the society. That's how it works, and that's how they want it to stay. It sounds terrible, but that's exactly how they see it. We are in a toxic relationship with men. That is exactly what they're trying to do. It also mentions, you know, the rejection of like feminine qualities, so crying, being overly emotional and dramatic and blah blah blah. All of these things you can find in being masculine in men. And I feel like there's a certain like kind of like impulsivity, you know, this like being like flailing around and just not waiting to think. There's a part of masculinity that they don't want to address. So that's why they say women are overly emotional, because they quote unquote wouldn't react the way we're reacting. I remember a tweet a man said, oh, if men reacted like women did to everything, that, you know, more people would be dead. I'm like, how is that indicative of women being violent if that's not just indicative of how men are violent? So if, you know, men will be using an example, or imagine if we forgot each other's birthdays and we just shoot each other over that. The shooting part is your part, and you're saying that, oh, if we got, so you're just trying to find excuses and just jumping over the fact that you guys are more violent. The thing is, people expect women to put up with that kind of behavior, you know, because like she used the example of being a vegan. They don't expect vegans to eat meat, because vegans aren't really going around spreading smear campaigns about people who eat meat and stuff like that. Maybe they are. I don't really see it as often as I see men just slandering women up and down, saying that they hate women. Like I saw a man say women are, don't use this word, the R slur. Women are the R slur, but you know, but it was under a post about talking about men will do anything just to kiss a woman. And it's the truth. Women are so stupid, according to you. We are so arseler to you, apparently. But you guys go feral anytime a woman revokes access to her. And that's why, hey, I'm not looking forward to being in a relationship. I'm not looking forward to being married, because people are going to assume that I'm supposed to just give my body to this man who's so disrespectful on every level, to especially to other women. Like, if you are a woman and you think he's just nice to you, and it's a good thing that he's just nice to you and he's mean to other women, that misogyny will turn back on you one day, especially when the least you're expecting it. People expect men to be mean to women because that's a function of heterosexuality. That's what they're supposed to do. There's no other way they're supposed to act. That's why when men are nice to the women they're in relationships with, you see groves and groves and groves of men swarming into the comment section talking about simp, simp, simp. You're supposed to simp for a woman who is giving 9 months of her body on sporadic years, giving you life, giving you children, and also stamping your last name on the children that she carried in her belly for 9 months, draining her everything inside of her. I think we as a society, we have moved far past the idea that we do not understand why men treat women this way. We know exactly why it's like this. Men will tell us themselves that they're sick and tired of us rejecting them, sick and tired of us of having too many women and advising too many women and girls not to have kids when they're not ready, to not keep fetuses if they don't want to keep fetuses. There are too many of us getting jobs, and that means men have to actually use their brains at jobs, and they can't just get a job and be promoted because they have penises. They can't be mean to people in the LGBTQ plus community anymore. They can't punch down on religions. They can't punch down on women and kids anymore. They can't neglect their children and expect the wife to want to still be married to them. They can't be doing all these things anymore, throwing their weight around and being bullies to the rest of society. Apparently that's just like taking like a binky away from a baby. And they're flailing, slamming their legs and their arms on the floor, having tantrums about it, and yet apparently we're the emotional one. Men will never sit up on videos like I'm doing right now and explain to you why they hate women so much. They will just say that they get to because it's valid. Why wouldn't you hate women? What is the point in not hating women? That's how you get them to do what you want. They will not even refer to it as hatred. This is how you're supposed to treat women. Men do not deserve kindness, because if you give women kindness,
you will give them the false sense and the false idea that they can have control over their own lives and they're allowed to make decisions for their own body. You will give women the idea that they're allowed to be human beings, and you can't subjugate human beings. So that's why you have to convince women that you are not human beings, especially not in the way men are. If men lose the upper hand, they lose control of us. That's it.
If you're in the UK, I'd suggest watching the BBC news round that's on today. So if I were you go onto the website and actually watch the news round, they went to go and interview some kids in Pennsylvania, USA. As we know, they're gonna I think they're announcing the president of the United States tomorrow. And I want to say I want to find it funny, but I don't. It's not funny anymore. It really isn't. It wasn't funny the first time that guy was elected. It won't be funny if he gets elected again tomorrow. And I feel like it might happen. I think it's going to be very neck and neck, very close. Maybe 51%, 49%. Let me use UK politics to talk about it, because people like to pretend it won't happen anywhere else. There's one thing about these people who vote and support the guy who's running against Kamala Harris. They always have a certain look, and I'm not just talking about white. I'm talking about them looking like a weapon fashioned against society. I'm talking about them looking like outcasts. And these people are teaching their children to act the exact same way. This was a 14-year-old boy they were interviewing, saying that, oh, she talks too much about women's rights. I'm not saying that women's rights isn't important, but she doesn't talk about men at all. She doesn't talk to men at all. First of all, she's a woman. The reason why men and boys, they're teaching boys this anyway, and this is why I don't feel bad about referring to boys as men, because if you're having male, like adult male sentiments and opinions, you will be treated like a man, because you obviously think you're that guy. You obviously think you're an adult and you're mature and you know enough. And they're teaching girls to think that they're inferior as well. It's not just the boys that they're teaching to be dominant over the girls, because they haven't stopped putting girls and boys in the same school. So if these girls are going to school with boys who think they're inferior, what do you think is going to happen? What is already happening? The reason why men are getting upset about a woman possibly being president is because they've never had to worry about this before. Why isn't Kamala Harris, why is she talking about women's rights so much right now? Is because they've never had to talk about it before. It's never been mentioned before. All the presidents before have been men. So men have never really had to talk about women's rights because they don't have to care about that. Things have either been done in secret, in private, like it's not been at the forefront of their campaign. And to be honest, it's not at the forefront of Kamala Harris's campaign either. Like, I don't really hear about her talking about men's rights as much as people think that she is. You may have a problem with her politics, and to be honest, I'm not sure what your problem is anyway. But this is the world we're living in currently. These are the men and the boys we have to live on a planet with and share countries with. So you have to open your eyes now. It's always funny how people like the girls they were interviewing, like these were little girls. They did not even look older than 9 years old. These were like 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old girls saying that, oh, I don't mind a woman president, just not her. I don't care if they're a man or a woman. These are children parroting these sentiments, saying that, we don't need a woman president, or we need a woman president, but just not her. They said the exact same thing about Hillary Clinton. They would have said the same thing about Janet Reno if she ever tried to go for the presidency. They would have said the same thing about Condoleezza Rice. Trust me. They're always trying to say that they would prefer to have a female president, or they wouldn't mind a female president, just not her. They will say that about any woman who ever tries to go to the presidency. The past few female prime ministers we've had in the UK, Theresa May, Liz Truss, and Margaret Thatcher, those are the only three. They all flopped. There was a reason why, even though Margaret Thatcher had 2 terms. I think she even had 3 actually. There's a reason why. It's not just because they were incompetent. It's because they're women. They never stood a chance anyway. Not in a society that's not ready for them. It'll be this way forever. So look at these screenshots. I just searched up, why do men not want to vote for women? Know this and know this now. See the horrible, terrible, disgusting, absolutely abhorrent and inhumane things men and boys are saying about women and girls. I'm just walking home from work, but I do have to say it because it's ridiculous, because it's not funny anymore. It's really not. It wasn't funny the first time. It's not funny this time. At first, it's the whole world laughing at them. But can you honestly believe, can you wrap your head around it? Can you put 2 and 2 together? Well, you know for a fact you're voting alongside boys and men who do not believe you should have rights. But then they're looking at what's going on in places like Afghanistan, where they've really really done their best to erase women from society, and they have the audacity to say that's bad. They have the audacity to say, oh, they're making women suffer over there. What do you think their plans are for women in America? I find it very hard to believe that they actually care about women's well-being, because they don't. If you guys re-elect that guy again, that means you're treating it like American Idol rather than the general election. The reason why these men and boys are voting for him is literally because they hate women and girls. Women and girls don't date them, will not date them anymore and let them get away with the bare minimum. And you also know who hates women and girls? The guy who's running against Kamala Harris. He says it all the time. He says he's going to elect a guy who has abused women before, in charge of women's affairs. You're talking about how Kamala Harris, as a 14-year-old boy, that boy that they were interviewing in the news round, he was 14 years old, but he looks 28 at least. He was shooting a gun. I'm sorry, you let 14-year-olds shoot guns in America now? These children were on there talking about some Kamala Harris talks too much about women's rights. You know, Trump talks about women's rights too. The difference is he says women don't deserve any. Under his regime, women will not only be dying from small abortion, from lack of small abortion, they'll be relegated to the home. It'll be very, very difficult to ensure that women can live a life free of men, can be living independent lives. Do you know what Trump is assuring them? Because they're saying business was better under them and unemployment was better. It really wasn't. It wasn't any better than it is now for you guys. In fact, it's 10 times better than it was, simply because you've seen the rise of NEETs. If you don't know what NEETs are, you need to search it up. NEETs. And it doesn't go without saying, and it's a very likely story that most NEETs are men and boys who thinks that you have some kind of special brain power in order to get a job, to have some initiative and take care of yourself. You want a woman to do that for you. Trump will ensure that taxes are raised so high. They'll give tax breaks for businesses and for rich people. You're not rich though. You are the average Joe. Once he raises taxes again, it makes things difficult for you. He will also be making things difficult for women and girls, and they will have no choice but to marry boys and men like you, who not only suck but think that you should be punished if you want to have a small abortion from a pregnancy you do not want to keep. If you were assaulted by your stepfather, the lady that just died from, I think, sepsis after, she wasn't allowed to get a small abortion. She came from a pro-life family, and I'm pretty sure she was pro-life herself. And you'll be pro-life until your life is in danger. People keep talking about, oh, Kamala Harris, she supports genocide. She's the reason, her and Joe Biden, they're the ones who did this thing and did that thing. I want everyone who says that to give me a 10-point plan. Give me the plan step by step that Trump has for stopping the genocide that's happening in Gaza, happening in Palestine. I want you to tell me that right now. Because if you don't tell me, then your qualms and your arguments against Kamala Harris for president over the other guy is null and void, because it's your job to elect the lesser of two evils. If you want your country to go to the garbage bin, do that. It's already heading there. You can't hear my voice. I'm English, I'm British, I've lived here my whole life, and when I tell you I've seen it all, I've seen it all. You cannot shock me. I went to uni and I met a gay guy and he has a boyfriend and he's a Trump supporter. I'm sorry. I think people over here in the UK, people in Africa, like Nigeria specifically, they like Trump for a few reasons, to be honest. If you grew up in my generation, like when I was younger, we used to see Trump as somebody who's like a reality star. He was on WWE, which I used to watch. He was in Home Alone 2. He had guest appearances on a lot of shows. People just saw him as this rich guy who had lots of skinny young women on his arms all the time. I'm not saying people who've been on TV can't be president, because obviously look at Ronald Reagan, innit? Even though Ronald Reagan was one of the worst US presidents, if you want to get an American person very upset and angry, just mention the name Ronald Reagan. And understandably, of course, because Ronald Reagan was like our Margaret Thatcher, to be honest. I'll just say this to Americans. If you guys want a president that said, if I want a woman, I just grab her by the PUSSY, that's your prerogative. It's just funny to me, when things inevitably go wrong, people always say, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? Somebody help us. The rest of the world isn't laughing. That's why I talk about the UK, because we're not that far behind. Boris Johnson was already saying things like Muslim women who wear burqas look like mailboxes. That guy, like Donald Trump, he has multiple baby mothers. In fact, if you go on Wikipedia and search up Boris Johnson, it can't tell you how many kids he has. It says speculated. These are the people you want to run the country. When a woman makes one mistake, that's why women are afraid to drive. Because if they make one mistake, they'll be like, oh, this is why women shouldn't drive. But these men can mess up. And not only that, they can make it a part of their personality to mess up, and they'll call him a work in progress. You can't be a work in progress when you're in the White House. I'll talk about these screenshots tomorrow. I just need people to know what they're saying about women and why they don't vote for women, or why they don't want women to vote. And that's another thing. They never wanted women to vote. What have they been saying this current election? What have they been saying since the start of campaigning? What have they been saying in America? What have the men been saying? They've been saying repeal the 19th. You have children, literal boys who cannot vote yet, saying repeal the 19th, because they've never had to think about things this way. Their worst nightmare is you turning around and voting like they've been voting without regard for the other gender. You are a part of the LGBTQ plus community and you're voting for him. You're a woman and you're voting for him, and you're saying you're scared. You saying you're scared. You said you're afraid of what somebody's going to do to you. You're not scared enough, obviously. Like I said, I live in England. I work with people, literal English people, British people, who say, oh, he's not that bad. I actually like him, you know. For what reason? You're telling me people, the media have been twisting his word. The media has his back. Like bees have honey. I'm sorry, have you seen bees with honey? They don't play about honey. This guy is an actual convict, but you don't want convicts in jail to vote. But he should be president. Okay, cool. I implore you to go and watch that news run, because they do one every single day. Go and watch that news run on the BBC website right now and see the way these children, literal children, are talking about. Look at the way they're talking. Look at the way they're talking. Look at the way the girls are talking. Those 6, 7, 8-year-old girls. Those are the little girls that these grown men who are voting for Trump want to marry and get pregnant. This is why girls' periods are starting earlier, because they're getting assaulted. If that makes you uncomfortable, it should. I'm not saying good luck, because it's far past it now.